Kastvam mana charane loke baladamsya balam balahi naradeva siveshena natadvat karmana dvijaha kastvam mana charane loke baladamsya balam balahi naradeva siveshena natadvat karmana dvijaha
Kasvamacharane loke baladamsya balam bali naradeva siveshena Kasvamacharane loke baladamsya balam bali naradevo siveshena Kasvamacharane loke baladamsya balam bali naradevo siveshena Kasvamacharane loke Kasvamacharane loke baladamsya balam bali naradevo siveshena
Kaha, who are? Tvam, you. Mat, my. Sharane, under protection. Loke, in this world. Balat, by force. Hamsi, killing. Abalan, those who are helpless. Balihi, although full of strength. Naradeva, a sea. Oh, sorry, man god. A sea, appear to be. Vesheshena, by your dress. Natavat, like a theatrical player. Karmana, by deeds. Advija, a man not twice born by culture. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Oh, who are you? You appear to be strong and yet dare to kill within my protection those who are helpless. By your dress, yourself to be a godly man, but by your deeds you are opposing the principles of the twice-born Kshatriyas. Purport. The Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas are called twice-born because for these higher classes of men there is no birth by parental conjunction, and there is another birth of cultural rejuvenation by spiritual initiation from the bona fide acharya or spiritual master. So a Kshatriya is also twice born like a Brahmana, and his duty is to give protection to the helpless. The Kshatriya king is considered to be the representative of God, to give protection to the helpless and chastise the miscreants. Whenever there are anomalies in this routine work by the administrators, there is an incarnation of the Lord to re-establish the principles of a godly kingdom. In the age of Kali, the poor, helpless animals, especially the cows, which are meant to receive all sorts of protection from the administrative heads, are killed without restriction. Thus the administrative heads under whose noses such things happen are representatives of God in name only. Such powerful administrators are rulers of the poor citizens by dress or office, but factually they are worthless, foolish, low-class men without the cultural assets of the twice-born. No one can expect justice or equality of treatment from once-born, spiritually uncultured, lower-class men. Therefore, in the age of Kali, everyone is unhappy due to the maladministration of the state. In modern human society is not twice born by spiritual culture. Therefore, the people's government by the people who are not twice born must be a government of Kali in which everyone is unhappy. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopeshwa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatchadesh Satarine Ye Mahanta Kilaham Saputa Jagat Parviti Karanartha Magata Ite Taruchastani Sevanome Kartum Vishudam Rachanam Pravinaha. Whenever we study Srimad Bhagavatam, it should not just be a collection of information, actually. Our study of Srimad Bhagavatam should be a very personal study, and you can see that in many of the prayers of the Bhagavatam and many of the prayers of the Acharyas, you'll see that if one recites these prayers with attention, specifically you see this in the prayers of Lord Shiva, when he gives the prayers of Lord Shiva are given to the Prachetas. And he says, if you recite these prayers with attention, then the full fruit will manifest. And then we see in the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, the description which is given of him is that he recited the prayers in a mood of ekagraha, which means one-pointed attention. And this one-pointed attention in devotional service, it comes from deep contemplation upon the subject matter. This is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Somehow I always forget this verse. The first verse of 7th chapter. Maya Shaptam Manapartha Yogam Yujan Maya Shayaha. Asamsayam Mahabaho. See, I get it mixed up with another verse in the 6th chapter. And how does it end? Yete jnanam touchtrinu. Yete jnanam and touchtrinu. That now you can come to know of me in truth simply by hearing of me. So the process of hearing is an opportunity for us to come closer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And specifically, the vibration of the Srimad Bhagavatam has been revealed to the world for the purpose of anarthopasanam sakshat bhakti yogam zadhoksaje lokasya janato vidvams chakri satvava samhitam. That the Srimad Bhagavatam has been spoken in order to eradicate those things which don't allow us to deeply contemplate the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they don't allow us to see how everything which Krishna is doing in this creation is meant for our development on the path of devotional service. What is the verse? Yashin? Right after Anarthopasanam Sakshat. You don't remember it? It ends Soka Moha Bhayapaha. Yes, I'm trying to remember. I recite it practically every other day. Yes, you have it? No. Right after Anarthopasanam Sakshat. And this, it's like the third or fourth verse of the seventh. Actually, I can probably find it. Yasyam Vaisha Yamanayam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhakti Upadyate Pumsam Soka Moha Bhayapaha. That the Srimad Bhagavatam, when it's recited, when it's heard properly, I just want to pull the verse up. Yes. Yeah, Samohito. Konta Karnavuru really did a number on this. Yasyam vai shayamanayam Krishne paramapurushe bhakti upadyate pumsa sokamoha bhayapaha. That by giving attention to the Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasyam vai shayamanayam, through the process of hearing, Krishne paramapurushe, one becomes aware how Krishna is the Supreme Person. And by becoming aware of Krishna's name, form, qualities, activities, bhakti upadyate pumsam, devotion begins to arise within the heart. And then soka moha bhayapaha. So this reading of Srimad Bhagavatam is most effective when it's done with attention. Now generally, why do people pay attention to something? They want to get something out of it because they're interested in themselves. Everyone is very much interested in themselves, and this is natural because Atman Akilatmanaha. The self of oneself is Krishna. But as long as one is in ignorance of oneself and one is ignorant of the relationship with Krishna, they're very much interested in themselves. So when we study Srimad Bhagavatam, we may not be directly realizing Krishna Paramapurushe on every page. But at the very least, if we can think, how does this relate to me? How does this relate to my devotional service? Then this contemplation of how does this relate to my own practice of devotional service, it will create this quality of fixing the mind on Krishna. Fixing the mind on the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam is non-different than fixing the mind on Krishna. So as we go through the purports of Srimad Bhagavatam, as we go through the verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can ask ourselves, how does this relate to me? How does this relate to my cultivation of Krishna consciousness? And we can see in this particular verse the quality of Parikshit Maharaj's consciousness. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's this nice verse which says, Devasya mayayasprishta yechad yat asadashrataha brahmate dir tatad vakter atman yutatmanoharo. This is a verse which is being spoken by Uddhava to Vidura when he is describing the pastimes of Krishna. And it's describing that for those who are fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the words which are spoken and the activities which are performed by those who are under the control of the illusory energy, they are never bewildered by such activities. They're never bewildered by such words. Sometimes someone may say something about the philosophy, someone may say something about Srila Prabhupada, someone may say something about the movement, and our minds become disturbed. Our minds become disturbed and we lose focus in devotional service. But you can see when the same things are spoken to a senior devotee who is completely surrendered to Krishna, who has given their entire life to serving Krishna, their mind doesn't become disturbed actually, because they understand the nuance of devotional service and they understand the various incongruencies which can arise on the path of devotional service. So what we're seeing here is the value of being fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because as it's said in the Vedyam Bastam Atra Vastusi Vedam Tapatrayo Mulanam, that when one is fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and one has integrated the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam in their heart, they're able to distinguish reality from illusion. And that's what we're seeing in the quality of Maharaj Parikshit's consciousness. Because of his Krishna consciousness, because of Krishna appearing to him in the womb, he got the name Parikshit because as soon as Krishna revealed himself within the womb, Parikshit means examiner. So everywhere Parikshit Maharaj would go in the world, he was constantly searching for Krishna. This is what's described in the Bhagavatam. Everywhere he was going, he was constantly searching for Krishna. And that quality of consciousness, of constantly searching for Krishna, it came from being fully surrendered to Krishna. Dharmartha kama itiyo bihitasri varga iksatrayi nayadamo vividacha varta man eta akilam nigamasya sattvam swa arpanam swasuhida paramasya pumsam. Prahlad Maharaj prays that the Vedic literature, they may speak about many, many things. They may speak about dharma, they may speak about artha, they may speak about kama, they may even speak about moksha. And all of these things are based in scripture, so there is some value there. There is some truth there. But Prahlad Maharaj says, but as far as I'm concerned, swa arpanam swasuhida paramasya pumsam. The true need of the heart of every living entity is the science of surrender, the science of Sharanagati. And this is the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that those who have filled their consciousness with a mood of surrender, for them, Devasya mayayasprishta yechad yat asad ashrataha. Their mind can never be bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord or the illusory activities of conditioned souls. So Parikshit Maharaj is able to detect the improper character and the activities of Kali because of this refined consciousness which he has from being fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can see that as we go through the world, there's places, there's circumstances which are favorable and unfavorable for our devotional service. Like for instance, we were distributing books in Palo Alto a couple days ago, and Advait, myself, Ambarish, and Balaram Prabhu. We were going shop to shop, and then we were about to turn into one shop, and Advait goes, now wait a minute, what's going on here? I said, oh, okay, let's not go here. And then Ambarish is like, what? What is it? So that's a sex shop, Prabhu. We're not going to go in there. So we just continued on. We didn't look, we just continued on our way. So why do we know not to go in there? Because we understand it's not favorable for devotional service. If it agitates the mind, that agitation becomes like a poison in our life. Niskinchanasya bhajano mukasya. That for those who are trying to follow the path of devotional service very strictly, they know to stay away from the materialistic talks and the materialistic activities, the grossly material activities, of those who are bewildered by the material energy. They keep a good distance from it. So although we enter into many circumstances, although we enter into various situations as we're performing Sankirtan, as we're engaging in devotional service, as we're trying to give Krishna consciousness to others, we have to simultaneously keep in mind that just as if you go to a restaurant, everything is available on the menu. But according to your power of digestion, that will determine what you can take from the menu. So in the same way, as we go through the world, there'll be circumstances which are favorable and unfavorable for our Krishna consciousness and for the Krishna consciousness of others. So what's being spoken about here is Maharaj Parikshit has captured a circumstance which is not only unfavorable for himself, but it's unfavorable for the entire world. And that is one taking the position of Naradeva Siveshena, taking the position of being a Naradeva, a man god, which was how the king was supposed to be viewed. The king was supposed to be so qualified by his alignment with the principles of Bhagavat Dharma. He was considered to be such a surrendered soul that as a leader, everyone could put full faith in him, full trust in him, and surrender their entire life to him, and happily give taxes to him because they knew that those taxes would be utilized for their upliftment. But Parikshit Maharaj has captured this quality, Naradeva Siveshena, that this leader is a leader in name only. So one of the drawbacks of Kali Yuga, one of the innumerable drawbacks of Kali Yuga, is people take to power not necessarily because they're qualified to be in power. They take to power because they have the dress by which they can appear that they're very, very powerful. And we were speaking about this the other day. Vijay Prabhu was mentioning how the politicians and the leaders of today, they can dress very nicely. And simultaneously for ourselves, we should remember, if we are taking up positions of leadership, we could also dress very nicely. You know, we could wear everything which makes us look very respectful, very aristocratic. But we have to see that the qualification to actually take a position of leadership is actually manifesting within our heart. So what's being said here is that there's a first birth which is by our parents. Second birth which is by the Guru. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's this verse which appears, Diksha kale bhakta kare atma samarpan. That diksha is when one makes a vow to accept the process of surrender into their life. And it is a commitment to deepening one's willingness to surrender. As His Grace Varnabinda Prabhu once said in an initiation lecture for some of our boys who are getting initiated, he said that this verse, Diksha kale bhakta kare atma samarpan, what it means is that the verse following it, it says that Krishna immediately accepts that person to be as good as himself. Which means Krishna is accepting that person on the transcendental platform. So Diksha kale bhakta kare atma samarpan is a vow, Suvarnabindu Prabhu explained, to remain transcendental in all circumstances. So any position which we're in, our first birth by the parental conjunction and the second birth by cultural rejuvenation by spiritual initiation, that second birth is the ability to remain transcendental, is the quality of remaining transcendental. Remaining transcendental is described in the Bhagavad Gita, Kama Krodha Vimuktatman Yantimam Yatta Chetasa Abhito Brahma Nirvanam Vardate Viditatmanaha. Thank you. So what is this verse saying? Kama Krodha Vimuktatman, that one is not moved by lust, one is not moved by anger, but rather the quality of their consciousness is yantimam yatta chetasa. They're constantly striving for transcendence. Actually, another name for a sannyasi is a yati. Yati comes from this word, yanti mam yata chetasa. This yati means full determination to be fully engaged in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Evam etam sahashtaya paratmanishtam adyadasitam puratmaharshapi. Tamoma kangrini vaseva yaiva. Itam sahashtaya paratmanishtam adyatmasitam paratmaharshapi. Tamoma kangrini vaseva yaiva. I'm forgetting it. You guys were at the Advanti Brahmana class last night. Itam sahashtaya paratmanishtam adyadasitam puratmaharshapi. Aham tarishyami duratapadam tamoma kangri nibiseva yaiva. This verse is spoken by the Avaduta Brahmana, or the Advanti Brahmana. The Advanti Brahmana was a miser. And he was, in a previous circumstance, he would collect money and never spend it. And he became the enemy of his family. And no one liked him. And he created so many enemies due to his greed. But then somehow, by a reverse of fortune, a circumstance arose where all of his money was taken away and he had nothing. And that circumstance of reversal of fortune actually became a great blessing in his life. As it's often explained, a material breakdown is generally indicative that we're on the verge of a spiritual breakthrough. So this Advanti Brahmana, he accepted the circumstances as the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's explained in the commentary that somehow he had some connection with the holy name at some point. And that connection with the holy name, it produced a genuine feeling of renunciation when circumstances began to reverse on him. So at the end of his prayers, he's describing how, rather, when he took sannyas, everyone was his enemy. Children would pee on his food right before he was going to take prasadam. They would just come up and start urinating on his plate. People would throw rocks at him. People would take his staff and break it. People would push him around. They'd wrap him up in chains. But he never responded to it. He never reacted in an aggressive way. Rather, he offered these prayers, and he ends the prayer saying, Etam sahashtaya paratmanishtam adyadasitam puratmaharshapi. Aham tarishyami duratapadam tamoma kangrini vasevayaiva. That now I will cross the ocean of material existence, being fully fixed in the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this process has been approved by all the previous acharyas who were fully surrendered to the Paramatma within their heart. So this has to be a consciousness which we cultivate in any particular ashram, in any particular stage of life. We have to have the desire that I want to cross the ocean of birth and death. I want to become Krishna conscious. And even if we're not fully existing in that state of consciousness, if we can have the awareness to not act on kama, not act on krodha, and yanti mam yata chetasa. Krishna says, abhito brahmanirvanam vartate viditatmanaha. That person is qualified for liberation. And then Krishna goes on to say, labante brahmanirvanam rishanik sina kalmasa chiditaitva yatatmanam sarva bhute riterata. Labante brahmanirvanam. Those who are existing in transcendental consciousness, this will be the quality which you'll see in them. Labante brahmanirvanam rishanik sina atma Rikshik Sena Atmanaha. That they see everyone with equality. They treat everyone with compassion and respect. And simultaneously, Chidaitva Yatatmanam. They're beyond the dualities of this world. They're beyond doubt. What is the doubt which the living entity has? They doubt that Krishna's hand is guiding their life. Rakshasititi Vishvaso Goprit Vevaranantata. The quality of a surrendered soul is they always feel that Krishna will protect me. They see that balasya neha sharanam pitaro nashingha, that although the parents try to protect the children, although a ship tries to protect a sailor, and although medicine may be able to protect a patient, a surrendered soul sees that none of these things are actually what will protect me. Because medicine can fail, the ship can sink, as we know with the Titanic, which, by the way, I learned recently that Vaisheshika Maharaj's grandfather was on the Titanic. He was supposed to be on the Titanic. And he was he was involved in something with like telegrams. And he was supposed to get on the ship and come to America. And there was something like PayPal or Venmo during that time, which money would be wired to a particular place. But the money never arrived. And so he wasn't able to get on the ship. He got on the ship in London, and because the money didn't go through, they made him get off in France. And so he wasn't able to ride on the Titanic. It's amazing. And so because of that, we now have the association of our dear Vaisheshika Maharaj. So you can imagine everything is being controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one has to learn to see it's not my parents are protecting me, it's not a bank account which is protecting me, it's not an institution which is protecting me. The only thing which is protecting me is Krishna. Chittadaitva yatatmana. They don't doubt that it's Krishna protecting me. Rather, they have full faith that wherever I go, Krishna will be with me and he will protect me. And the final quality is sarva bhute rite. The person who is existing in transcendental consciousness, they're always trying to do good for others. And the greatest thing they can do to others is bring them to Krishna consciousness. So what's being spoken here in this purport is that to simply be in a position of leadership, to simply accept initiation, even if we're existing in ISKCON, and let's say we get initiated, if we are not keeping within our heart the vow to remain transcendental, then we fall in the same category as Nara Devo Siveshena. We're a devotee in name only. But a devotee means to take a vow to be transcendental and to walk through any and all circumstances in order to see that you can maintain that transcendental disposition. The air of Kali is that although he's dressed as a leader, he does not carry this transcendental consciousness. The air of Kali Yuga is although people take positions of being parents, although they take positions of being teachers, although they take positions of being presidents of whatever country, although they take positions of even being the leader of the municipal bus department, the biggest error in society is we do not have leaders who have actually undergone the rigorous process of cultivating transcendental consciousness. So the greatest gift which we can actually offer to the world is not by accepting whatever position we're supposed to accept in society, not accepting any particular role we have within society. Someone may be a police officer, someone may be a hospital worker, a doctor, someone may be a lawyer, someone may be working in IT, someone may be an accountant, someone, whatever you want to think about, the different career paths which exist. Someone may be even existing as a brahmachari. All of these roles which we have to play in society are secondary to the fact that we have an identity which requires us to go beyond the limitations of that role and be existing in transcendental consciousness. And if we're existing in that transcendental consciousness, that is the greatest gift to society. Then whatever particular role you play is quite superfluous. But the active ingredient is that one has taken the vow that in this life, I will give myself to Krishna. Sakrit eva prapano yes, tava smichi tayachate. Abhayam sarva bhutanam, no, abhayam sarvadatasmai, dadami etat pratam mama. Dadami etat pratam mama. Lord Ram tells Vibhishan that anyone who once approaches me and says, I am yours, I am your servant, I am surrendered to you. Abhayam, what is it? Abhayam sarvada tasmai, dadami etat vratam mama. He says that I grant that person fearlessness. So our number one priority in life, beyond the various responsibilities we may have, is to see that we cultivate a determination to become transcendental in this one life. We have to cultivate that determination. We have to organize our life for the purpose of that determination. And we have to be abhayam, fearless enough to be able to reject the things which aren't allowing that determination to fully manifest. This is the consciousness of a surrendered soul. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjitam. We have to see what are the ingredients of Kali which are influencing my consciousness, which are preventing me from being fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and executing my particular role in society in such a way that it's in alignment with the principle of samsiddhir haritoshna. Hare Krishna. It's 8 o'clock. I'm supposed to stop then, right? Shall we know, Prabhu? Okay. So now we can have discussion. Okay.
So we see that there were many exalted sages who were present alongside Parikshit Maharaj, and everybody heard the Srimad Bhagavatam, but Parikshit was the only one to be liberated. What would you say?
He was the only one to be what? I didn't understand.
Liberated. He was the only one. So was it that the surrender of everybody else was of a lower standard, or did Parikshit Maharaj have any quality that distinguished him from the others that enabled only him to get liberated at that time?
This sounds like a question where there's probably an answer in the Bhagavatam itself. And I don't know what the answer is. So I don't want to say something which is outside of the scope of the acharyas.
But how do you know it was only
Yeah.
because it's kind of quite clear that Sutta, he became the next speaker.
Yeah.
He also liberated others.
Yeah.
So I never heard that it was only Parikshit that got
Liberated.
liberated.
He just died the
He got
soonest.
liberated because he passed away
Yeah.
after 7 days. But liberation is not just geographic. You go from here to like entire country. Liberation means becoming the real devotee.
Yeah. In that regard,
Probably there were many who became real devotees this way or that.
yeah. I would say rather than thinking of who got liberated and who didn't get liberated, what are the qualities of someone who can get who will be liberated by hearing Bhagavatam is a more appropriate question, and that's answered in the Bhagavatam itself. Veta tvam samayam tat sarvam tatvatas tat anugrahat bruya snigdas yasisyasya guravo guhyam apyuta. This is being spoken by the sages of Naimisharanya to Sutta Goswami, who was the person who would carry the message of Bhagavatam forward. The Bhagavatam was spoken by Parikshit after, but it was spoken to his mother in a very consolidated form, which then manifested as the Brihat Bhagavatamrita through the pen of Sanatana Goswami. But the Bhagavatam was spoken again, the Bhagavatam which we have, by Sutta Goswami. And the qualities of him is that because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. Therefore you can tell us all that you have scientifically learned from them. So his quality was snigdasya. He was anugrahat. He was favored by his spiritual masters because he was somya, pure and simple-hearted, and snigdasya, submissive. This is the quality of someone who will benefit from hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a story in the Madhva Sampradaya. I'm trying to remember the details of it. Once Madhva Acharya was speaking on Vedanta Sutra, and he was speaking and speaking and speaking, and then his students asked, who will go on to represent your lineage moving into the future? And when he spoke, he said, it will be that cow. There was a cow there that was also hearing. And they were very confused by this, but it was because the cow was hearing with rapt attention. And that cow, as my understanding, went on to be Gyanatirtha. Someone who knows the tradition of Madhva will probably know the details of this story more clearly. Have you heard this before? Yeah. It's Gyanatirtha. Gyanatirtha took birth 50 years after the disappearance of Madhvacharya. But he's considered by all Madhvas to be the ideal representative of Madhva's teachings. So the quality of snigdasya sisasya, that is the most important quality which we have to cultivate. Saumyam in snigdasya. Simplicity and submissiveness. Willing to be humble and willing to be submissive to a qualified teacher. Any other questions, comments? No?
I have a follow-up.
Oh yeah, sure.
In the Bhagavatam Mahatmya, there's the story of Atmadev and Dhundukari and Gokarna.
Yes.
So in that, Dhundukari is a ghost, and then he hears the Srimad Bhagavatam along with Gokarna and many other sages there. Even in that situation, it is the ghost that's the only one that's liberated from it. And the same question is posed for there as well. Why is it that the most sinful among us, Dhundukari, was the only one who got liberated, but not Gokarna, who was easily the most pious soul there? So I'm just trying to find out what is that ingredient. Like, is it rapt attention? Is it full surrender? Is it the intensity with which they were hearing? Because in 10.1.3, Shukadeva Goswami himself tells Parikshit Maharaj, I'm surprised that you have not eaten anything, you haven't slept for 7 days, and you're hearing. And then he says something like, it is nectar to me and I can continue to hear. Because you have the eagerness to hear, I have the eagerness to tell you more. Something like that. So I just want to know what is that. You must cultivate.
Well, we see, I think the Somya is answering this question. I'm thinking of Srila Prabhupada. When Srila Prabhupada was in India, it's not that Srila Prabhupada wasn't an empowered acharya in India. He was very powerful. And Srila Prabhupada was preaching to many people. And we see that no one really took up his message very seriously while he was in India, at either time, before he went to America or after he went to America. Somehow at that particular time in India, people weren't taking what he had to say so seriously. Actually, if you look at his preaching in Bombay, especially his last Pandal, it's very, very strong the way he speaks. Giriraj Swami says he was just letting it rip on his audience. He was really chastising his audience, which was practically just only full of Indians, and he was really letting it rip. But somehow his Western disciples, although they came from very fallen backgrounds, although they engaged in practically every sinful activity imaginable, one quality which they had, despite the fact that they were in many ways not qualified, one quality which they had is that Somya. They were quite simple when dealing with Prabhupada. They had very simple faith in Prabhupada. And because of that initial simplicity which they had in trusting Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada was able to train them, and from that training, they were able to make advancement. So there's this pastime with Srila Prabhupada where someone was asking Srila Prabhupada, I think this is in Srila Prabhupada and Lilamrita. Someone asked Srila Prabhupada, or Swamiji, this is in San Francisco, he said, who can come join your society? So Srila Prabhupada said, anyone can come. Anyone is welcome to come. But once they accept training, then they have a lifestyle which they have to adjust to. So you see, Srila Prabhupada dealt with all types of people, but then once someone is willing to be trained, their life was transformed. So it's very rare for someone to actually want to be trained in the process of Krishna consciousness, even if one has a guru, even if one has a spiritual master. They could be not a deva, visheshena. You're a devotee in name only. Because being a devotee means somya snigdasya sisasya, being willing to be transformed by the words of your spiritual master. If one doesn't follow the instructions of their spiritual master and they claim to be a disciple, I mean, what kind of devotion is that? It's not devotion. It's an official ecclesiastic title which they're giving to themselves for one reason or another. So many examples are there of this particular behavior. So we just have to see within ourselves that we're willing to be molded by the words of the spiritual master. Guru mukha padma vakya chitite koriya akya arna koramani ash. That we can accept the words of the spiritual master as our life and soul and make that our only desire to execute those instructions and reject anything which is not allowing us to fully execute those instructions. That's the quality of a devotee. Satsanga tyaga e vaishnavachar. Anything which is asat, you give it up. You send it away. You're not interested. Money comes, women comes, and it's unfavorable to devotional service. I don't want it. I only want to serve the mission of my spiritual master. I only want to love and serve Krishna. This is the quality which allows one to be transformed. Is that they're taking the words of the spiritual master extremely seriously. I think there's a verse which speaks about those who are studying the subject matter regularly and seriously. Something like that in the Bhagavatam. I'm forgetting the Sanskrit. Hare Krishna. Okay, does anyone have anything else to say, or should we wrap up?
Hare Krishna,
I think
Prabhu.
we can wrap up. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Vanchak. Oh, Sakala Subhag's here. Okay, great.
Hare Krishna, I just
Sakala
want
Subhag. Santosh Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna, Devavratha Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. I just want to, I don't have any questions. I didn't want to reflect on like so many wonderful points that I could recollect. Thank you for sharing in today's lecture.
You wanted to recollect some points?
No, which recollect in the sense like, I'm no, like I could meditate up.
You'll be thinking about them today.
Yes.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
I got a quick one.
Oh, yes.
He was like quite reserved, you can tell, and it's just in regards to not wanting to follow
Hmm.
the superior. I asked him a little bit about Bhagavad Gita. Krishna said, "Yeah, I've heard it." And then he started saying, "Yeah, I want to believe that all beliefs leads to the graveyard." He said, "Leads to the graveyard." I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "They're empty." And I said, "Okay. No, what's the alternative?" And he said, I just observe." I said, "Okay, and then what?" He goes, "Why does there have to be anything else?" And this way they just mentally concoct.
Yeah.
And not having an authoritative figure that knows. And just to close it out, I observed him, we chanted quite a bit. 40 minutes altogether. And he just done this, what I could perceive a very fabricated stoicism. I don't want to chant. I'll just close my eyes and look up a little now and see what else I want to. But it's a very
It's unsustainable.
Like to be
Yeah.
because you have to pretend. This is actually a joyful process here, but I don't want to engage in it because this is what I have come to believe myself. So on the positive side, he heard the holy name and he accepted prasadam. He got a little sympathy. So,
Yeah. Drop. Yeah, it's palpable when someone has an attitude of wanting to learn, especially if you're in a position where you're kind of guiding and helping people. You can see that. I think Naranjana Swami says that the hardest thing about being a guru is knowing exactly what the disciple needs to hear, but knowing that they will not accept it if you say it. So the guru doesn't say it because they don't want the disciple to commit an offense. In Devaki Mataji's book, Sheltering Relationships, she speaks about how someone was going to see Naranjana Maharaj in Vrindavan. And this person, I think she said it was a Mataji, she really wanted to move to Vrindavan. And she was pushing her guru, I want to move to Vrindavan, I want to come. And he was saying, well, I don't think it's the best idea. And he was actually trying to discourage her and redirect her attention elsewhere. She said, no, I want to move to Vrindavan, I want to come, I want to live here. And then the conversation went on, I think, for a half hour, and she was just like not hearing anything he had to say, but imposing her idea of devotional service upon him. And then when eventually he said, all right, move to Vrindavan. And then when she left, she goes out and she tells her friends, my guru just gave me an instruction to move to Vrindavan. So that's not the attitude we want to have. Okay. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarum vischa kripasindhave cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Devavratha Prabhu ki jai.